everyone, and welcome to the Bildungsurlaub Easter Challenge. And as Thomas explained in his presentation of what was going to happen in the session today, basically I am going to talk you through different ways in which you can promote your Bildungsurlaub courses to different audiences, whether it is through your website, whether it is on your social media, and also through third-party websites. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bernice Camilleri, and I am one of the two owners of Schools and Agents. As a way of introduction, Schools and Agents is a content sharing platform which enables education providers to connect with agents through content. And obviously, we are here to talk about content, so as you can imagine, that is our specialty. So to begin with, whenever it comes to content, one of the main points that you have to keep in mind, and one of the main things that I am always focusing on, whether I'm talking to clients or even in videos that I share on our social media platforms, the starting point is always to define your target audience and also to define their motivations. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Imagine that you're writing a blog post on your website, and your website is mainly visited by direct students, so people who want to book directly with you and who want to book their courses directly with you, not through an agent. That blog is going to have to be completely different when compared to a blog that is shared on a third-party website such as Schools and Agents. Why? Because the audience on Schools and Agents is made up of agents predominantly. So the way in which you sell your courses, if you had an agent in front of you and if you had a student in front of you, is completely different. You need to keep in mind that when you are writing blog posts, you need to think of your target audience. The way in which you speak to a potential student is different from a way in which you speak to an agent. So that is why you need to have blog posts which are perfectly targeted. Another layer to that is to identify immediately in your title who the blog post is targeted at. For example, why Bildungsurlaub works for students. If you are putting that on your website and you are sharing that with direct students. Or another title could be why you should promote our Bildungsurlaub courses to your students, if you are writing a blog post that is targeted at agents. So that is my number one point today. Obviously, the topic of the blog post per se, so the topic of the blog post in general, can differ, because the motivations that students have to take these kinds of courses and the motivations that agents have to sell these kinds of courses are different. So what you need to keep in mind if you are writing these kinds of blog posts, and if you're thinking about what topics you should be writing about, is simply, what do students want to hear? What do agents want to hear? You make a list of that, and my suggestion is always that in every blog post you focus on one main topic. So rather than trying to say everything in one post, it is much better to have one post per topic. Nowadays, we hear a lot of stories, and they're not myths, they're actually true, about the attention span of people, and that has gone down thanks to social media, thanks to the time that we spend on computers and on digital sources. So we need to cater for that attention span as well. Keep in mind that if people are reading this blog post, for example, a potential student is reading this blog post on his or her way back home after a day's work, when they are on the train commuting back home, it cannot be too intense. It needs to be, I know you've had sessions or you have upcoming sessions on SEO, and probably one thing that's going to come up is readability. Readability basically is how easy, not just in terms of language, but also in terms of how the post is presented. How easy is it for my target audience to take the message home? So my suggestion before moving on to point number 2 is to understand which target audience it is that you are writing for, understand their motives and their motivations for being on your website today, and third of all, to make the post, to keep the post short and simple. So like that, you're making sure that you've captured your target audience. Then, what can we write about? Obviously, here today I'm discussing blogging. I will also move a little bit into social media. In fact, in point number 2, what can we write about? What can we share? I will give you some examples and I will tell you whether it's better to share these on social media or perhaps better in a blog post. And I'll start with the first one, success stories. Everybody likes a success story. You can present your success story in 2 different ways. If you choose to present your success story in the form of a video, then that will do better and will perform better on social media. Whereas if you want to present your success story in the form of written content, then over there it would make more sense to share that as a blog post. Once again, I refer you to point number 1. If you're going to present your success story in written format, keep in mind who you are writing for. You might want to, if you like, and this is the beauty of content, you might want to write 2 blog posts from one topic. You might want to take a success story, present it as a video to push on your social media, present it as a success story targeted at agents, and present it as a success story targeted at students. Especially for the 2 blog posts, the one that's aimed at agents and the one that's aimed at students, you're not going to need to amend too many things. Probably you will just need to change a few things in the introduction and a few things, as you go along throughout the blog. But otherwise, you're pretty much using the same content, but you're just making sure that this content will be much more successful, because depending on which platform you are sharing it and presenting it, you're making sure that you're presenting content that is specific to the target audience of that platform. Note how I keep repeating, I do it on purpose, but I also do it because it truly is the case. How I keep repeating the phrase target audience. Whatever you do, and this doesn't just go for Bildungsurlaub, it goes for everything that you do in digital marketing. Keep your target audience in mind. So people who, for example, and I'm going a bit at a tangent over here, but I think it's necessary. People who, for example, take a blog post. I get it a lot on schools and agents, and I keep telling my clients, remember that our target audience is agents. So sometimes people give me a link and they tell me, can you share this blog post on your website? And when I start reading the blog post, I realize that the blog post was written for students. So it makes sense to share it on the school's blog page, because the school's blog page is probably visited by potential students. But it doesn't make sense to share the blog post as it is without changing anything on a platform like Schools and Agents, because the target audience of the school's website and the Schools and Agents website is completely different. This goes in the same way for obviously the topic that we are discussing over here today. Other topics that you can be writing about, it could be, for example, behind the scenes. You can, for example, interview a teacher. Once again, this could be an idea for video content, which obviously video content does so well on social media. But that video content, that video of you interviewing or someone interviewing a teacher about what they teach on Bildungsurlaub courses, what are perhaps some difficulties that learners have when taking on these kinds of courses. What are the experiences of teachers who have trained these kinds of students? So you can take then that video and turn that once again into text to go out on your website and potentially, for example, to go out in a newsletter that you send out to agents. So again, you know, it's what I'm trying to get to over here is that with one topic, with one idea, you can spread and you can create so much content. Not to mention, obviously, social media posts over and above the video itself, because the video can be posted as a reel, but then from the video you can take a photo of the teacher and create an image with the photo of the teacher and perhaps a quote, part of what she said in the interview. There you go, there's a social media post. So what we've done over here with one interview, we've created 4 channels, 4 possibilities for content that goes out digitally. Other things that you can do, for example, a very good idea for a blog post, to go on your website, to go on the school's website. So a blog post that is targeted at students and a blog post that does very, very well from an SEO perspective is a step-by-step guide. How to apply, for example, 10 steps on how to apply for your Bildungsurlaub. So these kinds of titles, 10 steps or a step-by-step guide or how to, these kinds of titles do very well in terms of SEO for the simple reason that their topic is very clearly presented. Other things that you can write about, for example, course previews or course highlights. Again, you can interview people, you can turn that content into video, you can turn that content into an article, you can turn that content into social media. So there's a lot that you can do. Obviously, it's very important that when you are writing, but again, I think this will come up in your SEO seminar, so I don't want to go too much into this, but obviously make sure that you are optimizing your written posts, whether it is on social media or on your website, and you use keywords. For example, if you are based in, I don't know, I'm based in Malta, so Bildungsurlaub in Malta, or how to apply for Bildungsurlaub in a particular state. Language courses for Bildungsurlaub Germany, I'm inventing. These could be potential keywords that students are using, which you can then incorporate in your blogs or in your social media captions in order to keep targeting more and more people to obviously drive more traffic to you. So like I said, obviously I'm looking at my notes over here. This isn't all coming from my head now. I had to think about it, but I also had to think about it to obviously be able to present it in a way that is not too repetitive. So what I'm looking at over here is, for example, repurposing content. Another point I had made, actually 2 points which I haven't mentioned so far. I did mention turning blog posts into videos or reels for social media, or vice versa, turning videos into blog posts. Another thing that would be nice is to present a carousel of images on Instagram and on LinkedIn or on your other social media platforms. Obviously, images speak volumes, so people are always attracted to nice things, and if you can present nice photos of happy students together with a quote of somebody who has attended one of your courses. For example, one thing I always suggest is feedback forms. Now this goes beyond digital marketing to a certain extent, because from these feedback forms, apart from collecting valuable information, obviously for your school to see, where things are, how successful the courses are, how happy the students are, but when you get the students to write comments, those comments can also be turned into testimonials and social media posts. So again, additional ways in which you can repurpose content for more engagement, to use it in multiple ways. Earlier on, I mentioned writing a blog post on 10 ways to apply for your Bildungsurlaub. You can take that and turn it into an infographic. So basically, you're taking the key aspects of the blog post and you're turning that into an image which you can share on your social media. Infographics do very, very well on LinkedIn, for example. So again, it's not simply a question of writing a blog. You can get creative with all of that, and you can make sure that you're using this blog post and you're maximizing on the use of this blog post. Obviously, if you have any specific dates when these courses are starting, advertise these dates, because those would be, the moment you start advertising and promoting these dates on social media would be round about the time when people start looking for these kinds of courses. So if they land on your page and they find information about this course, then obviously it's a question of being at the right place at the right time. Apart from obviously using and repurposing the content that you create, it is also a very valid idea to cross-promote your blog. So once you've created your blog, don't just leave it on your website, but like I said, change it a little bit to angle it towards agents and send it out in a newsletter, for example. Or take the blog and share it in student groups that you have or that your school is a member of. Turn it into LinkedIn posts. Obviously on LinkedIn, we know it's a fact there are more professionals, and that is your target audience when promoting Bildungsurlaub courses. So LinkedIn is a very, very good place for you to be sharing your blog post. Even sharing on Facebook groups, which are focused, on education and career development. So it's, again, a way to not just write a blog and share it on your website and leave it there and start praying or hoping that magic will happen. That would be nice, but we need, a little bit. We need an injection of fairy dust, and we inject that into our blogs and obviously into what we do ourselves. So cross-promoting, for example, I am a firm believer in email marketing. I think email marketing works a lot. So if you have, for example, a list of contacts, things like HR departments in different, states in Germany where your Bildungsurlaub certificate is valid, you can be sharing your blogs in a newsletter that is targeted at these people. So again, you will need to repurpose your blog post a little bit to be reaching this particular target audience. Like I said, you can send it out as a newsletter to agents who sell these kinds of courses already. There are other things that you can do. I don't want, again, to take up too much time over here, but Another important way in which you can do this, and I'll start bringing this to a close because we've already been going on for around 20 minutes, is to offer what we call lead magnets. So like I mentioned earlier, with repurposing a blog and changing it into an infographic, you can make this downloadable from your website. So obviously you will need to discuss that with your web developer, but normally it's not a big deal. It would be a simple plugin where people need to enter their email address, so like that it's giving you leads, and they will be able to download this how-to guide on how to apply for Bildungsurlaub courses. But then you would know, because you would be collecting the email addresses of all those people who have chosen to download this, who's interested in these kinds of courses, and you can then, your sales team can then follow up. So like that, it becomes even easier to obviously funnel the people who are interested in what you are selling. And finally, what I always believe in, as you can see, I believe in a lot of things. This is one of them. It's tracking engagement and using tools like Google Analytics. So checking how much time people are spending on your page, checking how the click-through rate is going, which parts of the blog post people are clicking on. So like that, you start to understand and you start to get a clearer picture of what it is that drives traffic and what it is that people are interested in. Now, in order to conclude, because Thomas did mention this, that I am coming here with an Easter egg, and unfortunately it is not made, well, or maybe fortunately, I don't know, it's not made of chocolate, but what it is made of is that I would be very happy to offer one of you the possibility to help you build a blog post specifically to promote your Bildungsurlaub courses. You will have the option to either write, so I will help you write the blog post for a student target audience or for an agent target audience. If you choose to go for an agent target audience, I would be very happy to publish this blog post for free on the Schools and Agents website. So the way in which you do this, I would like you to type in, if you've watched this video and hopefully you liked it, you type in the name of your school in the comments section of this video, and you type in name of the school Easter egg next to it. So like that, I will know who's interested. Then Thomas and I will do a random draw, and the lucky winner will be contacted by myself, or perhaps if we are not already in touch, I'll ask Thomas to make the introduction so you can benefit from this offer. Like I said, I will help you write a blog post for a student target audience if you want to publish this blog post on your website, or for an agent target audience if you want me to publish the blog post on the Schools and Agents website. With that Easter egg, a very healthy one indeed, I will leave you for today. It has been a pleasure recording this video for you, and I do hope to see more content on social media and on your website about how to promote your Bildungsurlaub programs. Until then, I wish you all a very happy Easter, and hopefully we'll be in touch very soon.